The desert of Arkan, 9 was never meant to have miracles. Its twin suns boiled the horizon into molten gold, and its winds carved glass from stone. Few dared cross it alone. Fewer returned. Captain Elias Rourke had never planned to be here, let alone kneeling in the dust, cradling a creature that should not exist. The child was small, no taller than a human toddler, though its body was slender and luminescent, skin shimmering like liquid opal beneath the harsh light. 4 delicate arms clung to his shirt with surprising strength. Its eyes, too large, too old, stared into his with wordless terror. Behind him, the wreckage of his survey shuttle smoldered. Ahead of him, the dunes stretched endlessly. Somewhere beneath those dunes, hidden from every star map, lay an underground city of the alien species, known only in forbidden whispers. The Cathari. Humans were not supposed to know they existed. And yet here he was, holding one of their children. The child trembled. A low chittering noise escaped its throat, an alien sound that somehow felt like a plea. Elias swallowed hard. "Okay, little one," he murmured. "Guess we're both in trouble now." 1. The crash. 2 hours earlier, Elias had been a routine reconnaissance pilot for the Terran Expansion Corps. His mission was simple: chart the uninhabited regions of Arkan, 9 for future mining operations. No danger, no drama, no mysteries. Until the storm hit. A magnetic sandstorm erupted without warning, shredding his instruments and ripping the shuttle from the sky. He barely managed to steer it into a controlled crash. By the time he crawled free from the wreckage, his communication array was dead and his water supply ruptured. Then he saw it. A sinkhole in the sand. Perfectly circular. Too smooth to be natural. Curiosity overrode caution. He descended into the hollow and found a metallic hatch buried beneath the dunes. It was already open, and from inside came the sound of crying. He hadn't hesitated. He never would have forgiven himself if he had. 2. The child beneath the sand. The underground chamber was dimly lit by pulsing violet panels. Strange machines lined the walls. Crystalline growth sprouted from the floor like frozen lightning. And in the center of the room, curled beside a broken incubation pod, was the child. No adults. No guards. No explanation. Elias approached slowly. The child recoiled, then collapsed weakly. Its breathing was shallow, its bioluminescent skin flickering erratically. He knew nothing about alien physiology, but he knew fear, and abandonment, and the instinct to protect something smaller than yourself. He lifted the child carefully. It weighed almost nothing. The moment he did, alarms erupted. Red light flooded the chamber. Mechanical clicks echoed through the corridors. Something large moved beneath the walls. Elias ran. He didn't understand the significance of what he carried. Not yet. 3. Hunters in the dunes. By the time he reached the surface, the storm had passed. The desert sky was clear. Too clear. Shapes moved along the horizon. Towering figures. 4 meters tall. Cloaked in shifting armor that blended with the sand. Cathari sentinels. They had found him. Elias sprinted. His lungs burned. The child clung tighter, its fear feeding into his own. He didn't know where he was running, only that stopping meant death. A spear of blue energy cracked past his shoulder, vaporizing a dune behind him. Another shot struck the ground near his feet, blasting sand into his eyes. He stumbled, fell. The child cried out in a shrill tone that pierced his skull. And then, silence. The air grew still, heavy, charged. Elias wiped the sand from his eyes and looked up. A massive structure rose from the dunes like a living mountain. Organic, curved, glowing with veins of violet light. Gates unfolded like petals of a colossal flower. From within, a voice spoke directly into his mind. "Do not move." He froze. Figures emerged from the gate, Kthari warriors, armored and terrible. At their center floated a being unlike the rest, tall, regal, draped in flowing crystalline plates. A crown of light shimmered above her elongated skull. Her eyes were galaxies trapped in glass. The Queen. For judgment. Elias expected death. Instead, the Queen raised one slender hand, and the warriors halted. Her gaze locked onto the child in his arms. The child reached toward her with one tiny glowing hand and whispered a soundless plea into the air. The Queen closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her voice resonated inside Elias's mind like a chorus. "You carried my daughter from death." Elias swallowed. "I didn't know who she was. She was alone." The Queen descended, floating until she stood before him. The air smelled faintly of ozone and rain. My hatchery collapsed. The city's shields were weakened by the storm. I was searching for her, and you found her first. A warrior stepped forward, clearly displeased. He trespassed. He discovered our existence. He must be silenced. The Queen turned her gaze toward the warrior. The air crackled. The warrior stepped back immediately. She returned her attention to Elias. "Why did you risk yourself for a stranger? For a species your people fear?" Elias looked at the child. Its tiny fingers curled around his. "I didn't think about species," he said. "She was just a kid who needed help." The Queen regarded him for a long moment. Then she did something no Kthari ruler had done in recorded memory. She bowed. 5. The debt. Elias blinked in disbelief. "A life saved is a bond eternal," the Queen said. "Among my kind, such a debt cannot be repaid with gold, territory, or treaties. It is repaid with generations of service." The warriors murmured among themselves, disturbed by the ancient law being invoked. The Queen lifted the child from Elias's arms. The little one pressed its forehead against his for a brief moment, an alien gesture of gratitude, and then clung to her mother. "Return to your people, human Elias Rourke," the Queen said. "Tell them that the Kthari exist in peace beneath the sands. Tell them that a single human rescued the heir to our throne." She raised her hand, and a glowing sigil appeared on Elias's wrist, an intricate spiral of violet light. "This mark declares a covenant. For one generation, the Kthari owe humanity a debt. No harm shall come to your species by our will. And when your people reach for the stars beyond their limits, we will answer." Elias stared at the glowing mark. "A whole generation?" he asked. "Because I saved one child." The Queen's eye softened. "Because you reminded us what compassion looks like." 6. Return to the surface world. The Kthari guided Elias back to the wreck of his shuttle. In moments, their technology repaired what human science never could. His engines roared to life. His communications array sparked awake. Before he entered, Elias turned back. "Will I ever see her again?" he asked, nodding toward the child in the Queen's arms. The Queen regarded him with something like warmth. "All debts come due. When the time is right, we will find you." The gates sealed. The city sank back into the dunes. The desert returned to silence. Elias launched into the sky, heart pounding. He had left that morning as a nameless pilot. He returned carrying a truth that would change human history. 7. A story no one believed. Back on Terra Station, Elias reported everything. The crash, the underground city, the Queen, the mark on his wrist. Officials listened. Scientists scanned him. Commanders debated. Most dismissed it as heatstroke-induced hallucination, until the mark pulsed with violet light and projected a three-dimensional star map into the air, a network of hyperspace routes humanity had never dreamed of. Silence fell across the command chamber. They could no longer deny him. Over the following months, rumors spread. The story of the pilot who rescued an alien child became legend. Some worshipped him. Others feared the consequences. Elias himself wanted none of it. He returned to flying supply routes. He kept his head down. He waited, because the Queen's words echoed in his mind. All debts come due. 8. The day the sky opened. 10 years later, the human colonies faced extinction. An unknown armada emerged from the void, machines of living metal that devoured worlds. Colony after colony went dark. Fleets were erased in seconds. Panic swept across human space. On Terra Station, admirals prepared for the final battle. The enemy fleet was hours away. Humanity's defenses were laughably insufficient. Elias watched the tactical display from the command balcony. His hair had gone streaked with gray. The mark on his wrist had never faded. As the first enemy ships entered orbit, the sky above Terra fractured like glass. A tear opened in reality itself, and through it poured the Kthari. Thousands of living warships, organic and luminous. Warriors in shimmering armor. Psychic energy that turned the vacuum of space into a storm of light. At the head of the fleet stood the Queen's vessel, vast and radiant. Her voice rang across every human communication channel. The debt is called. The generation owed is repaid. The battle was swift, terrible, beautiful. When it ended, the machine armada was gone, reduced to drifting debris. Terra stood untouched. Humanity had been saved, not by its own power, but by a promise born in the desert. 9. The final meeting. After the battle, a single Kthari shuttle descended to Terra Station. Elias was summoned alone to meet it. Inside, the Queen awaited him. The child was beside her now, grown taller, her glow brighter, her eyes filled with intelligence and curiosity. Elias Rourke, the Queen said, "The debt is fulfilled. The covenant ends with this generation." Elias nodded slowly. "Then we're even." The child stepped forward and pressed her hand against his wrist. The glowing mark dissolved into gentle sparks that drifted away like fireflies. But before they vanished, the child looked up at him. "I remember you, Sky Father," she said softly into his mind. "I was never alone again because of you." Elias felt his throat tighten. He smiled. "That's all I ever wanted." The Queen inclined her head. "Your species has much to learn. But compassion is the seed of greatness. You planted it in the dark, and it grew." The Kthari departed. The skies closed, and humanity was left forever changed. 10. Legacy. Elias returned to quiet life. No fame, no statues, just peace. But stories spread across the colonies. Of a man who saved a child. Of an alien queen who honored an ancient law. Of a generation protected by a single act of kindness. And among the stars, the Kthari watched, waiting. Because sometimes the fate of civilizations is decided not by armies or weapons, but by one person who chooses to care. Years passed. Elias Rourke lived quietly on a hillside overlooking the silver-blue ocean of Terra's western continent. He never sought recognition. He never spoke publicly about the Queen or her daughter. The galaxy knew his name, but he let the wind and waves keep his secrets. Sometimes at night, he would look up at the stars and wonder if the child still remembered the human who carried her through the desert. On his 72nd birthday, the sky answered. A single point of violet light appeared above the sea. It grew brighter, unfolding into a vessel of living crystal that hummed like a distant choir. It descended soundlessly onto the beach below his home. Elias walked down the path, leaning on a cane, heart pounding like a young man's. The ship opened. She stepped out first, the queen, radiant and timeless as ever. Beside her walked a tall figure, luminous and graceful. No longer a child, no longer fragile, the heir of the Kthari. She approached Elias, her glow reflecting in his tired eyes. Skyfather, her voice touched his mind gently. The debt was repaid. But gratitude is not a debt. It is a bond. I wish to see you once more before your journey ends. Elias smiled, warmth filling the lines of his weathered face. Well, he said softly, you grew up just fine. The queen inclined her head. One generation was owed to you. But history will remember that it was your compassion that saved 2 species. The heir stepped closer and placed her palm over his heart. A gentle light flowed between them. Not power, not magic, only remembrance. You carried me when no one else could, she whispered. Now, when you close your eyes for the last time, you will not walk alone. Tears formed in Elias's eyes, but he did not let them fall. I never asked for a reward, he said. And yet you earned eternity in our songs, the queen replied. The ocean wind blew softly. Stars shimmered above. Elias looked once more at the horizon. The world still safe, the future still open. Then he closed his eyes and smiled. Final line. Because sometimes a single act of kindness does not just save a life. It saves a future.